Welcome. Today, we gather to reflect on one of life's most profound truths. No matter how challenging our journey may seem, God is with us, guiding each step, offering us strength, hope, and love. We all face seasons of struggle, moments that test our faith and make us wonder if we can go on. But it's in these very moments that God draws us closer, inviting us to trust Him more deeply, to lean into His promises, and to find strength in His presence. Let's start with a powerful verse from Psalm 46 verse 1. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. This verse reminds us that we are never alone. When the weight of the world feels overwhelming, God is our refuge. When we feel weak, God is our strength. He is an ever-present help, ready to lift us up, to renew our spirits, and to walk with us through every storm. The challenges of life often come unexpectedly, testing us in ways we never anticipated. These challenges can leave us feeling vulnerable, but in 2 Corinthians 12 verse 9, we're reminded of God's promise. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. This beautiful truth speaks to the heart of our faith journey. When we feel weak, God's power is at its strongest in us. Our weaknesses become an invitation for God to step in and show His strength, His grace, and His love. Reflect on the story of David, a shepherd boy who faced one of the most feared giants, Goliath. David was young, small, and without armor. To the world, he seemed ill-prepared. But David wasn't relying on his strength, he was relying on God's. He approached Goliath with complete faith, declaring, "The battle is the Lord's." David's victory wasn't about his size or strength, it was about his faith. In our own battles, we can find strength by remembering that we don't fight alone. Just like David, we have a God who fights for us, a God who stands beside us, and a God who gives us victory. There may be times when we feel discouraged, wondering if our prayers are even being heard. But God always hears us, even when it feels like we're waiting for a long time. In Romans 8 verse 28, we are reminded, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." Even in the midst of trials, God is working behind the scenes. Every struggle, every tear, every prayer is part of His divine plan. When we feel lost, let's remember that God is weaving everything together for good. We may not see it now, but He is shaping us, preparing us, and leading us towards something beautiful. Consider also the story of Joseph, a young man who faced betrayal, hardship, and years of imprisonment. Despite the many setbacks, Joseph held on to his faith, trusting that God had a purpose. In Genesis 50 verse 20, he says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Joseph's journey reminds us that God can turn any situation around. What others meant for harm, God can use for good. When life feels unfair, remember Joseph's story and hold on to the promise that God is at work, even in the darkest moments. Sometimes, the greatest strength we can show is the strength to wait. Waiting is never easy, but it is a powerful demonstration of our faith. In Isaiah 40 verse 31, we find encouragement. "But those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." Waiting on God is not passive. It's an active choice to trust, to believe, and to hold onto His promises. As we wait, God renews our strength, giving us the endurance to face each day with courage. When we feel the weight of our struggles, let's also remember the power of prayer. Prayer connects us to God, allowing us to pour out our hearts, our fears, and our hopes. In Philippians 4 verses 6 to 7, we're reminded, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." Prayer not only brings us peace but also aligns our hearts with God's will. It reminds us that we don't have to carry our burdens alone. God is with us, ready to shoulder our worries and to fill us with His peace. In difficult times, it's also crucial to remember the gift of forgiveness. Carrying bitterness or resentment only adds to our burden. Ephesians 4 verse 32 encourages us to be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you. Forgiveness is not always easy, but it is a powerful act of faith. It frees us from the weight of anger and allows us to experience the fullness of God's love. When we forgive, we open our hearts to healing, allowing God's grace to flow through us. As we journey through life, let's also surround ourselves with people who uplift and encourage us. In Proverbs 27 verse 17, we read, "As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another." Community is one of God's greatest gifts. We were not meant to walk this journey alone. When we gather with others who share our faith, we find strength, encouragement, and support. Let's lean on one another, lifting each other up in prayer and sharing words of hope and faith. As we close this time together, let's remember that no matter what we face, God is with us. In every trial, every heartache, and every struggle, He is there, offering us strength, love, and guidance. In John 16 verse 33, Jesus says, "In this world, you will have trouble. But take heart. I have overcome the world." Jesus' words remind us that we are not alone. He has already overcome every challenge we face, and He promises to be with us through it all. Let's choose to walk in faith, to trust God with our lives, and to find strength in His promises. When the road feels difficult, remember that God is carrying you. When doubts arise, remember His love. And when you feel weak, remember that He is your strength. May God bless you, guide you, and fill you with His peace as you walk this journey.